Lisa. Welcome back to Biblical Reality Check. In this video, we're stepping into the Book of Proverbs, not as a collection of ancient sayings, but as a pattern recognition manual for how reality behaves. Reality isn't random. It's patterned, structured, and lawful. And those laws govern everything we experience, our emotions, our relationships, and the unconscious loops we repeat without realizing it. Think of reality as a cosmic operating system. An operating system runs quietly in the background, managing resources, coordinating processes, and maintaining order. You don't have to understand it for it to work. You don't even have to believe in it. It simply runs consistently, predictably, and impersonally. Reality works the same way. It doesn't require your belief or comprehension to respond to you. But once you do understand how it responds, everything becomes clearer. Not necessarily easier, but clearer. And that clarity is the purpose of this series, to understand how reality interacts with consciousness so we can begin to optimize our experience on this physical plane. The Book of Proverbs opens with a mission statement: to understand wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding. And in Proverbs 8, wisdom speaks in the first person, saying, I was beside him during creation. In this series, we've been calling this wisdom the universal laws, the structural intelligence woven into reality itself, existing alongside the source consciousness of God from time everlasting. Proverbs' opening verses are inviting us to understand how wisdom, or the laws, work in tandem with our consciousness, made in the image of the source creator. Just as the God presented to us in the book of Genesis created the world and called it, quote, good, unquote, we have the same capacity to shape our lives through our own consciousness and call that good. This is a radically different approach from the moralistic framing many of us have inherited. Proverbs isn't trying to police behavior. It's trying to reveal the operating system of reality. Throughout Proverbs, three foundational laws appear again and again, laws that govern identity, behavior, and the outcomes we call life. And they are polarity, vibration, and resonance. And beneath them all is a metamechanic, a dynamic pattern that shows how the laws express themselves in lived experience. In the Moses series, we explored the clearest example, recursion, which is the universe's way of repeating lessons until identity shifts. The law of polarity teaches that everything exists on a continuum. For example, hot and cold, light and dark, fear and courage, love and hate. One pole cannot exist without the other. Proverbs applies this law to consciousness through the poles of wisdom and foolishness. These are not moral labels, they are states of mind, two ends of the same spectrum. Wisdom and foolishness are not presented as moral categories, but as polarities, two ends of the same spectrum of consciousness. Some verses that illustrate this are, the wise inherit honor, but fools get disgrace. Proverbs 3:35. The way of fools seems right to them, but the wise listen to advice. Proverbs 12:15. The wise in heart accept commands, but a chattering fool comes to ruin. Proverbs 10:8. The wise store up knowledge, but the mouth of a fool invites ruin. Proverbs 10:14. As you can see from those few verses, polarity isn't judgment, it's orientation. Wisdom expands, folly contracts. Wisdom aligns, folly resists. Wisdom sees patterns, folly repeats them blindly. And at any moment, a person can shift poles. The second law, the law of vibration, says that your internal state shapes your external experience. We need to give credit where credit is due. It wasn't Rene Descartes who first said, "I think, therefore I am." It was the writer of Proverbs who repeatedly ties outcomes to internal conditions and writes in chapter 23, verse 7, "As a man thinks in his heart, so is he." What Descartes and the writer in Proverbs are telling us is that our inner world hums at a frequency, and that frequency shapes perception, behavior, and experience. A tranquil heart gives life to the flesh, but envy makes the bones rot, according to Proverbs 14:30. That's vibration language. Your emotional frequency becomes your lived reality. Proverbs shows us, for example, that anxiety vibrates one way, peace vibrates another, pride vibrates one way, humility vibrates another, and so on and so on. But vibration doesn't just determine your internal reality, it determines your external reality as well, through the law of resonance. Resonance is the principle that like attracts like. Proverbs shows this repeatedly. For example, chapter 4, verse 8 tells us to cherish wisdom and she will exalt you. Chapter 1, verse 23 advises that repentance attracts wisdom. Chapter 3, verse 13 says that wisdom attracts blessing, and chapter 3, verse 35 takes that idea one step further, concluding that the wise attract honor and fools attract shame. It's always good to walk with the wise and become wise, according to chapter 13, verse 20. For whoever pursues righteousness and love finds life, prosperity, and honor, according to chapter 21, verse 21. This isn't moralism, it's energetic clustering. Your internal frequency determines your environment. However, laws alone don't explain why patterns repeat, why timing sometimes feels uncanny, or why some people collapse under pressure while others rise. For that, we look at recursion, the mechanism through which the laws teach. Let's say recursion is the universe's debugging loop. It's the mechanism through which the laws keep surfacing the same lesson until one's internal code, their identity, changes. As we saw with Moses, he cycled through identities: Egyptian, Hebrew, fugitive, shepherd, reluctant leader, until he awakened to "I am." That moment broke the loop. Patterns repeat until identity changes. Proverbs is obsessed with repetition because repetition is the point. Proverbs 26:11 says, "As a dog returns to its vomit, so a fool repeats his folly." Now that's recursion. Not the most poetic way of putting it, but it gets the point across that reality loops the same experience depending upon our internal patterns of thinking. As the internal patterns shift, so does reality. Throughout Proverbs, we find examples where the sluggard repeats excuses, the gossip repeats patterns of conflict, the angry man repeats patterns of strife, the fool repeats patterns of folly to their ruin, and the wise repeat patterns of knowledge that help them grow. When you combine the laws with the meta mechanic of recursion, Proverbs becomes more than a list of sayings. It becomes a map of consciousness, a guide for navigating a responsive universe. It shows us that reality is not chaotic, it's responsive. It's not testing you, it's reflecting you. Every experience is a feedback loop designed to show you the identity you're operating from, the vibration you're emitting, the resonance you're tuned to, and the patterns you're repeating. Once you understand this, life stops feeling like something that happens to you and starts feeling like something that happens through you. Identity becomes the blueprint, the architectural drawing your experiences follow. You don't get what you want. You get what aligns with who you believe yourself to be. That's where the laws come in, because they enforce the blueprint with perfect consistency. Be a fool, generate your ruin. Act wisely, and you thrive and prosper in alignment with the laws that underlie everything. This is why Proverbs chapter 3, verse 6 can confidently say, "In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight." Not because God is micromanaging your steps, but because alignment with the operating system produces clarity, coherence, and direction. So, to conclude, reality isn't random, it's patterned and responsive. And Proverbs shows that our lives are shaped by the identity we operate from, not the one we inherited or perform, but the one beneath all of that. The laws in Proverbs aren't external rules, they're the internal mechanics of consciousness. Life doesn't happen to us, it happens through us. Every thought carries a vibration. Every choice expresses a polarity. Every pattern creates a resonance. And every outcome reflects the architecture we're running inside ourselves. Align with wisdom and life expands. Align with folly and life contracts. Not as reward or punishment, but as feedback. Reality mirroring the state of one moving through it. That's the invitation Proverbs leaves us with, to notice the identity behind our actions, the vibration beneath our emotions, the resonance shaping our environment, and the patterns we continue to repeat. Because once you see that reality responds to you, you can no longer claim helplessness or randomness. Everything begins with who you believe yourself to be, and everything changes the moment you choose to become someone new. Thanks for watching.